Alright, so in this video I just want to start to set up our routing files. Basically, we need to have some endpoints that our React application can hit to do certain things like register a user, log in a user, get the contacts, update contacts, all that stuff. And we're going to need the database to be able to do that. However, I'm just going to set up the routes for now. That they'll just output some text, and then as we move along, we'll add the functionality. All right, so I don't want to put everything in this single file, so I'm going to create a new folder called routes. And what we usually do is break each resource up, break it up into resources, and create files based on that. So for instance, we'll have contacts.js, and we'll also have inside routes users.js, and I'm going to have an auth.js. So these are the three route files. So contacts, obviously just CRUD functionality, create, read, update, and delete. Although each contact is specific to a user, so it's a little more advanced than just a basic CRUD API. Users is going to have the register route. Auth is going to have the login, the authentication. It's also going to have a route to check the logged in user. So let's start with users.js. Actually, one thing before we add anything to these files, let's bring them into server.js so that they actually work. So we need to define our routes, and the way we do that is with app.use. And I want every backend route to start with /API. So let's say /API users. Whenever we hit API/users, it's going to basically look at that file we just created. So we want to require our routes. Actually, we need quotes here. So ./routes/users. And then we'll do the same for the other two. So this will be routes/auth, API/auth, and then let's do API/contacts, and that'll point to contacts. Okay, now if I save that, I'm going to get an error down here, and that's just because we don't have any code. It's looking at these files and there's nothing in them. So let's start with users. That's really the first thing we're going to start with anyway, is to be able to register a user. So users.js, we're going to bring in Express, which we're going to do with all of these, but we need to bring in Express so that we can use the router. So let's require Express, and then what we want to do is create a variable called router and set that to express.router, capital R. And then when we create our routes now, we no longer do app.get or app.post or whatever. We do router. Okay, now this is going to be a post request, so I'm going to do post. And if you're not familiar with HTTP methods, I'm sure a lot of you are, but for those of you that aren't, a GET request is basically when you fetch data from the server. You're just getting data. A post request is when you're submitting something to the server. Okay, you're posting data, you're filling out a registration form, or you're adding a contact. Something like that is a post request. A put request is to update something that's already on the server, and then a delete request is to delete something from the server. So those are the four main methods we'll be working with. There's more than that, but those are the four main ones. So we're registering a user here, so we're using a post request. And what I like to do, if you took my MERNstack course, we're doing the same thing we did there. I like to have basically a signature for each route so we know exactly what's going on. So we're going to say route, which includes the type of request, which is post, and then the endpoint, which in our case is API/users. Okay? So the next one is the description. So we'll say DESC, and this is going to register a user. And then we're also going to have access, because some of our routes will be private where you have to be logged in. You have to have a token stored and send a token to access that route. But this is going to be public because it's to register. It's to actually become a user. So in here, just like we did in the server.js with app.get, we need to add an endpoint or URL. Now we're just going to put / because what we said here is that anything that goes to API/users is going to basically get forwarded to this file. So / now pertains to this, API users. and that's what I want this to be. And then this takes in a function with a request and response, and then I'm just going to open up some curly braces, and for now we'll just do a res.send, and we'll just send the description. We'll say it registers a user. All right, now we have to export the router or this won't work, and this is something I constantly forget to do, so we want to make sure that you do module.exports and set that to router. Okay, so that's it. And obviously we're going to add some functionality here, but we'll do that after we create all of our routes. So now what I'll do is copy this and go into auth. And auth is going to have two routes. One is going to be to just get the logged in user, and one is going to be to actually log in the user and get the token. So for the route here, let's change this to get, because this is just going to get the logged in user. And it's going to be API/auth. And for the description, let's say get logged in user. And the access is going to be private, because obviously we're getting a user that's logged in, so this should be private. And change this to get. Can leave slash, and then for this, let's just say get logged in user. Okay, that's one route. The next one is to actually log in or authenticate. So let's say this is going to be a post request, because we're sending data to get authenticated. It's going to be the API auth. Now notice both of these are the same. We're going to leave the same endpoint, or the same URL, I should say, but that's okay because they're different methods. One's get, one's post. Okay, this description will say auth user and get token, and this is going to be public because that's what the purpose is to actually authenticate and get the token so that you can access private routes. Slash, that's going to stay, and then we can just change this text to login user. All right, so now let's copy once again what we have in users.js. Go to contacts. Now contacts is going to have the most routes. It's going to have 4 because it's a CRUD route, basically, which is create, read, update, and delete. We want to be able to do those 3 things. So first we'll do a get request to, oops, that's not right. A get request to API/contacts, and this is going to get all users contacts. Okay, not all contacts in the database. The way we're building this is you can only access your own contacts. So each contact will be associated with a specific user. And these are all going to be private because you have to be logged in to add a contact or deal with them. So this is going to be get request to slash, and then let's say get all contacts. All right, so let's copy this. Next one is to add a contact, which will be a post request. And let's change this to add new contact. It's going to be private. Same endpoint here, or URL I should say. I keep saying endpoint, which I guess are the same things. But this is going to be a post request, and let's say add contact. Okay, next one is going to be to update a contact, so this will be a put request. Now with puts or updates and deletes, we have to describe what contact we actually want to update or delete in that case. So we're going to do /:ID, which is basically a placeholder for whatever contact we want to update. Okay, and then we're going to change this to router.put. And right here we just want to do :ID, because remember the slash already represents this right here. And then here we'll just say update contact. And then I'm going to copy update contact. And the last route we want is a delete request. Same thing, we want to have the :ID. And let's change this to router.delete, and we'll say delete contact. And that's it. Those are our routes. So let me just double check. Yeah, so this right here, I know I forgot that. This should be a post request because we're we're logging in. So we're going to send data. So let's save that. And now we should be able to use Postman to access these routes. So for instance, our login we know is a post request. Let's do localhost port 5000. We know it's API/users. So if I send that, we get register a user. Right now it's just sending text, but later on we'll actually add the functionality. So if we make a, let's see, a post request to API/auth, that should be our login route. If we make a GET request to API auth, that should get the logged in user. If we make a GET request to API contacts, that should get contacts. We should also be able to post to add a contact, put. Whoops, this is giving us an error because remember with put we need an ID. So let's just do /1. And there we go, update contact. So we'll do delete with contact /1 and we get delete contact. All right, so we have our routes created. So what I want to do in the next video is start to implement our database, because really from here we can't do much without having a database connection. All right, so we'll start to do that in the next video.